so we have a moment of silence for Matthew Passaggio, a 2013 grad of Hauppauge who recently passed away. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Turning to today's agenda, number 4, adoption of the minutes for the organizational meeting of 7/8/14. I'm going to move that we table that adoption. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Mass. All those discussion? Ms. Macaluso?
Could you just add an adjournment time or would you break that?
Yeah, it'll be on the next agenda. I asked that the clerk make a notation to make sure that it's on the next agenda for our meeting, which is August 26, 2014. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to table carries 7-0. Moving to superintendent's update and comments regarding tonight's agenda only. Ms. Chris? Yeah, we'll strike the tonight's agenda only portion of that statement.
This is going to be a very brief report.
Thank you. I just want to, on behalf of the district, extend our condolences to the Passaggio family. Many of us did attend the Shiva and spoke on behalf of the district. To the family, Matt was a wonderful young man and certainly a proud graduate of our schools. And we mourn, as we do with any of our students, such an early passing for a young man. I do want to comment because I did inform the public and the board that at the next board meeting I would keep the public apprised of class sizes and some of the things that we're currently looking at. There are currently 3 class sizes based upon enrollment and outstanding registration packets that we've received that may indeed break, and those happen to be first grade sections in all 3 elementary schools. So by our next board meeting, I'll have a further update for the board so that they are aware. I do also want the board and the public to know that we are sending out, for lack of a better term, what we call a robocall to all of our parents who have students K-12, asking their cooperation and assistance in determining enrollment, and specifically asking if they plan to move either out of the district or to another attendance zone within the district, to please call our central registration to assist us in any of the necessary paperwork that we need to do, but also in really understanding the student enrollment prior to the opening of the school. This week, I joined James Stuccio to do yet another tour of some of the work going on in our schools. I did visit Forest Brook Elementary School, where we have, thank goodness, new paving, just to begin with, out front. But we were looking at the construction of the man traps, as we call them, the security doors that are being placed on all of our elementary school buildings. And the progress is moving along. I really think that when the board takes their tour this year, you're going to be really impressed with the amount of work being done in our district this summer, and it really is moving along very, very nicely. I'm proud to tell the public that as we speak, our cohort numbers for IB students at the high school, students enrolled in international baccalaureate courses, has more than doubled since our original cohort 2 years ago. I see our IB teachers sitting out there. We had 19% of this year's graduating class participate in IB coursework. Our incoming juniors next year, because it's a junior-senior program, we have 40% of our students now enrolled in international baccalaureate courses, either diploma or individual courses. One of the things that I just want to mention publicly, although I honestly do not have a lot of specific information about this, but I think it's important for us to continue as we make fiscal decisions to keep this in mind, is that the comptroller has issued guidance regarding the tax rebate that will be offered to homeowners of school districts and municipalities who abide by the 2% cap for the successive years. This is our governor, put this into effect. But we also, as you know, to be eligible, we must be able to demonstrate how consolidation of services with other school districts or municipalities will save us the equivalent of 1% of our tax levy, which in our case for next year will be almost $812,000. So in order for our community residents to receive that rebate, that's the kind of number we're looking at in next year's budget. And finally, I just want to keep the board informed that we are actively negotiating with the teachers union, and our next negotiations meeting will be on August 25th.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the community regarding tonight's agenda only? If you would mind saying your name or stating your name.
Dorothy Graff.
Hello, Ms. Graff.
I found the agenda on the website this afternoon, but there was no backup posted for the items, specific items. I called the district office and I learned that Mrs., I'm going to say it wrong, Kerminian, is not in, and there were some technical difficulties, I understand. But it's very hard, if not impossible, to ask a question about tonight's agenda without that. So I wanted to bring that up. And I had two questions on two items. I had asked on the phone if there were changes made to the contract with CJ2 Communications, which was presented at the last board meeting but failed without discussion, and I was told that there were no changes. Is that correct?
That is correct. We got those responses, I believe, from the substitute secretary in my office.
Right.
And just one point of order, if I may. The vote on CJ2, or the CJ2 contract, did not fail last time it was on. No motion was made concerning it. So it was never brought, the question was never brought to the board.
Okay. Okay, and the same thing with the Board of Inspection as well?
There are no changes to the agenda item tonight as opposed to the last board meeting on those items.
Okay, I just was wondering why we were, and this has happened before, we had it on the policies as well. I'm just wondering why we're holding things off and doing them again.
Any further questions or comments? Mr. Stephanie?
Just on 9.1A and 9.1B, if you could just describe in general what the nature of the agreement with employee 2817 is and what the reason would be for a request for the impartial hearing.
The agreement with the employee is a member of the staff who was entered into the agreement with us to pay back funds that they were overpaid. So that's agreement just that they will pay back. We can't just simply take the funds back. We need to enter an agreement with them for the amount to be paid back. And the impartial hearing, that's a dispute with regard to a replacement, and provisions in education law provide that if a parent does not agree with the decision of the Committee on Special Education, that they can take the next step and go forward with request to process, which is an impartial hearing.
If I could follow up on the first one, the funds to be paid back, is that the full amount that we should otherwise expect to be paid back, or is there some deal involved there? Or?
The employee is going to pay back 75% of the total amount.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments concerning tonight's agenda only? Thank you. Seeing none, we turn to the consent agenda. Do any trustees have any items that they would like to have removed? Mr. Scarito?
9.1A. C3.
C3.
Correct. C6. C7. Nine point three B1. 3 and 4. And then 9.3 D1 and 4.
Any other items that trustees would like to have removed from the consent agenda? Ms. Mass? Is that it?
And 9.3 B5. Bingo, oh, sorry. For example.
Any others?
Nope.
Mass? Any other items trustees would like to have removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll take a motion concerning the consent agenda, less those items that have been removed. Thank you, Mr. Fortmeyer. On second. Mr. Scarito, thank you. Discussion. Ms. Mass.
I have a couple of questions, and I'm doing my best to find. Oh, here it is. I don't think mine's on it. Oh, there we go. On 9 point. I'm sorry. 9.3 B3. No, not 3. 9.2. 9.3 B2. The girls' varsity golf. The charter. On the charter, it says that the girls are raising funds for uniforms. Do we not provide the uniforms?
Yes, we do provide. We provide the uniforms. It could be different uniforms in the extra shirts or warm-ups and
Mr.
stuff.
Tasman, could you use the microphone?
We do provide them with uniforms. It could be that they're fundraising for sweatshirts or other parts that go like warm-ups that we not provide for the team as part of their uniform.
Ms. Macaluso?
And if the students are raising funds for those uniforms, they do get to keep those uniforms that they pay for, correct?
Exactly.
Ms. Mass?
On Discovery Education, we didn't remove that one, did we?
You did.
I did remove it,
Yes.
okay. Then I'm going to go down to, the treasurer's report is 9.3D2. We have budgeted to use reserves this year. When would we see in the treasurer's, reflection of that in the treasurer's report? The funds coming out of the reserves?
If we were to take funds out of the reserves, you wouldn't see the cash move for some time. Most likely we wouldn't move cash until the end of the year. And there's a difference between cash and the budgetary appropriations. They're related, but they're really not. So we can make a transfer on the general ledger, transfer money from reserves, but we're not necessarily move the cash at that particular time. I'll give you an example. This year we have in the budget to transfer X amount to the capital funds. Well, that transfer is done as of the beginning of the year, but we might not move the cash until January because that'll help us lower our TAN borrowing. We might move the cash until December. So really, the cash is totally separate. If you were going to see we need to take money to balance the budget, as we might have to do at the end of the year as we plan during budget time, you'd probably see us make that transfer in May or June.
In May or June. And if I could ask no
Please.
On the warrants, I have a couple of questions. Angela's house is one of the things that are on the warrants. We don't have to go specifically to the lines on the warrants.
It's 9.3D4, yes?
Yes, I'm sorry.
It's actually, that's been severed by Mr. Scarito.
Oh, okay, done.
Any further discussion on the consent agenda minus those items that have previously been removed? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Consent agenda passes 7-0. Moving to those items that have been removed, starting with 9.1A. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Fortmeyer. Discussion. Mr. Scarito.
I know we talked about, we had talked about voting and saying why we voted no or yes. I'll be voting no to this. I don't know why it's not 100% feedback, and it's almost like a no interest loan to me.
The reason for that, Mr. Scarito, I think we had discussed, is that the district would have had to expend funds to sue, and that rather than do that, to offset something that would be less than what it would cost to sue.
I understand it, Mr. Richmond. It's just a principle. I mean, it's amazing. It's like a no interest loan, and it's the district's money, community's money.
Any further discussion on 9.1A? Seeing none, all those in favor, I'm sorry, Mr. Kraft.
Just one quick question. Was there the threat of a suit over this to get the money back? Is that why you settled at 75%?
It was discussed with the employee that if she did not agree to the repayment agreement, that the district would be forced to litigate the matter. We wouldn't have a choice over it.
The district can't unilaterally just deduct it.
Mr. Richmond, if you could use your microphone.
Can't unilaterally deduct it from your paycheck. So the only way you can recover it is either for the person to just give it back or to sue.
Was it because that was our error? Is that why we can't take it back unilaterally? Because this exact same thing happened to me at work. They took it back my next check, and then some from the following.
It's because it's a government agency.
Any further discussion on 9.1A? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 4-3 with Mr. Scarito, Mr. Kiley, and Mr. Kraft voting no. Moving next to 9.2C3. Do I have a motion? Sorry?
9.1E.
I don't have, no, we're going through the ones you severed first, and I'll circle back to this mass. 9.2C3.
So moved.
Second? I'll second it myself. Discussion. Mr. Scarito.
As far as the assistant ones, it just says she's the coach of 7th and 8th grade. Does that mean that position is no longer there? It's gone?
Mr. Hasman.
The position is still there. She had the position, and then when the other varsity assistant coaching position became available, she applied for that. So now we are searching for a middle school position.
Okay, so we're replaced. That was my question. It seemed like we had no coach then for the.
We are searching for that.
I think you see Mrs. Lopez as being recommended for the varsity assistant.
No, I have that, Mrs. Chris, on the next page, but I didn't know if that was a new position because it had her removing and then adding her, but there was nobody adding to the position she was.
Because we haven't filled that yet. That's why. You'll see that probably the next August.
I just think so, no coach. Okay.
Any further discussion on 9.2C3? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. 9.2C6 and 7, I'll call those together, Mr. Scarito. Do I have a motion?
So
Do I have a second? Second. Thank you. Any discussion on 9.2C6 and C7? Mr. Scarito.
I don't know what a flag advisor does. What's $5,000 to do?
If you attend homecoming, you'll see that we have the flag team. We have a team called the flag team, and this is the person, the advisor for that team.
Because we rescinded one. Did one lose their job?
No, I believe that the person who was originally appointed was then unable to do it, and so we have appointed another person in her place.
Thank you.
Any other discussion concerning 9.2C6 and 7? Mr. Kiley.
All these positions are contractual. Just want to make sure. Salary.
The salaries are contractual, yes.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of 9.2C6 and C7? All those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. 9.3B1, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you. Discussion? Mr. Scarito?
If I understand the contract, this is where we investigate people who actually live in the district that go to our school. How does the district approach? Who becomes the Joan partner? Who becomes the one that reports? And
To Mr. Fanning, you mean? To Fanning Associates?
Yes, yeah.
It can come in a number of ways, but generally when we get the information, sometimes it's anonymous, sometimes it's returned mail, so we know the person no longer resides there. There are multiple ways that we may find out that there's a suspicion someone is not living in our district, and then Mr. Stuccio works directly with the agency and contacts them and asks for a specific investigation to be conducted. We receive the report, which then is very helpful for us because the legal proceedings we would tend to go through to say we have documentation that you no longer reside in our district and have to leave.
And is this sent out for bid, Mrs. Chris, as far as that goes? Because I know they're not.
This is a professional service, so it's not subject to bidding, but it's not, this is a professional service. It's like an attorney, or an auditor, etc. We have in the past solicited proposals, and Fanning was by far most cost effective. We've been satisfied with Fanning's work, so we've continued with them.
When was the last time we sent out for competitors or competitive proposals?
My best guess would be about 2 years ago.
2 years? Any further questions or comments on 9.3B1? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. 9.3B3, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Scarito. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Kravitz. Discussion? Mr. Scarito.
Unless the papers were wrong, there's a discrepancy of about $2,000. Is that resolved?
The discrepancy, you mean between 37,500? Yeah, my understanding is that the extra 2,000 change was for a large brochure district profile that the members, trustees had viewed, a comparable one for, I believe, a district out east. Part of CJ2's proposal is to do that for our district.
And just to be clear, I asked them to include that in the proposal because what we have been trying to do is have more public relations there for our community. And this was, as I said, something I saw on a tri-state visit. And we did begin the work to develop this. The administrators worked on it, feeling that it would be a good annual report to have for our district residents. And that is the difference between the two proposals.
Any further discussion on 9.3B3? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 5-2. Mr. Scarito and Mr. Kiley voting no. 9.3B4, do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Thank you. Discussion? Mr. Scarito?
This is on the swimming pool for the school district.
Yes.
It was $10,000. we know what it costs us for janitors and all that stuff? Are we actually losing money by Smithtown using our pools?
It's a great question, and this is an outstanding contract for us because it's an example of shared services between school districts. To give you a little background, Smithtown School District was using, I believe, Suffolk Community College, and they're paying about $20,000 per year for that. So they did approach us about using our pool. And we cut a deal where they would save $10,000 and we would get an extra $10,000 revenue. The cost of this is pretty much nothing to us because they only swim in the morning, and it's very few dates, believe it or not, for the cost that they're paying. And we already have the staff in. The pool operator is already in at that time, at 5 o'clock in the morning when they're coming in to swim. So there really is negligible costs for this in town to be here. Maybe there's some extra chemical costs, but there's no additional personnel costs or anything. So I'd say 95% of this contract is profit. It's important to note that the pool would need to be operated and maintained regardless if it was being used. The filters would still need to be on. The heaters would still need to be on. You can't shut the heaters on and off. It would take forever to reheat the water. So really, this is a win for them. They're saving money, and we're also receiving additional revenue in a way that doesn't interfere with any of our programs. And we've done it for 2 years now, and it's really seamless.
The only reason it came out to like $14.28 a month. I just wanted to see what it costs because that's a 7-month period. It just seemed very
They only use it a handful. How many swim meets are there for each group? Home swim meets is very good. There may be 4 meets per season and then practice, so they're not using the pool on an everyday basis for those 7 months. This is a really good deal for us, and we're trying to do more things like this.
Well, and I think the point is that if we didn't have this contract, we're out $10,000, even though
Could we ask
the
more?
pool is functioning as well. Well, I think as James explained it to you, what we tried to do in working with another school district is be considerate, just like we hoped they would be for us, and split the difference between what they were paying at Suffolk Community.
Any further discussion concerning 9.3B4? I had one comment. I had asked whether we could add, whether you contractually require them to name Hauppauge as an additional insured on their policy. Did we breach that or broach that topic with them?
We receive their certificate every year, naming the Hauppauge School District Board, et cetera, as additional insured to the required insurance that's in the contract.
So we should expect the same this year?
Absolutely.
Any further discussion on 9.3B4? Ms. Macaluso?
Clarification, isn't that standard language with any group that comes in, that the school district's additional insured?
There is, yes, standard practice, there is insurance requirements in the contract, and then before we allow use, we make sure that we have a certificate of insurance, naming the district additional insured. We review that, and also we send that to our insurance broker, Arthur J. Gallagher, and they review it as well. They check the insurer. Because this is another school district, they're actually insured by NYSER, New York State School Insurance Reciprocal, so
It's on the certificate.
we never have any problems.
Just to be clear, my problem is with that. This contract did not require that. It required them to carry insurance, but it did not require them to name us as the insured. And that was my question. But you're saying the pattern of practice with them is that they do provide that certificate with us, naming us as the insured. Okay. Any further discussion on 9.3B4? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. 9.3D1, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you. Discussion? Mr. Scarito?
Class of 2014, they raised a little over $27,000. At the end of the year, they graduated. Over $1,000 it says it gets transferred. It doesn't say where it goes.
The freshman class, correct?
We are on 9.3D1.
Did they give to this weekend? The tradition has been that money goes to another class, it's just a read-up, so that it goes to the gift and
Ms.
Each year, the officers of the class, whatever they don't use for their prom and other things, They make a decision with the balance, what they want to do with it. They may give it to another class, they may give it as a scholarship. I think the class of 2009 donated to the cystic fibrosis.
Right, so they make the decision, it's not the
class
school that
makes
takes
the
it back.
There's a board policy on ECAP that covers what happens when a class graduates, and all transactions in ECAP require the signatures of the class officers. So the advisor, the school administration can't just simply say we're taking that money. The students decide before they leave, and if they didn't, there's a board policy that dictates what would happen.
Yes.
Mr. Scrito?
We haven't started the school year, and we have over 10 clubs, more than $10,000 plus in their accounts. It just seems like an enormous amount of money. Some of them have $16,000 to $18,000.
There definitely is carryover that you will see in September. I just want to highlight this June report, not all bills have been paid. So there are bills that have come in June and July that won't be paid until August or September, so these numbers will go down slightly. However, there will be some carryover for September.
Ms. Mass?
And just for clarification as well, I know a lot of the PTAs or the elementary schools carry over money. Fourth grade give in their money for the field trip that they're going to go on, whether it's a play or now I think they're going to New Jersey or whatever at Bretton Woods. So they give their money in so that they have that ticket money ready for the beginning. It's already collected. So it sits in there while they're paying the bills over the summer for the tickets. If that's...
Any further discussion on 9.3 D1? Yes, Mr. Scrito.
Okay, so student council, they have over $14,000. What is that?
I would have to check that out. I'm not sure what they plan to do with that money. No, it's Student Council High School.
Do we not have a treasurer that's in charge of ECAP funds?
We do.
Yes.
Perhaps we could have her or him appear at a future meeting and answer some questions concerning, because it seems to be a recurring issue.
We could definitely do
I know,
that.
especially from Ms. McAloose.
I would say, however, that it would be best if we got the questions in advance, because she would need, or we would need to go back to the advisors, because she would not, she's the ECAP treasurer for the entire district, she would not know the individual transactions and plans to the schools, so we would have to reach out to the advisors. So we received the questions in advance, we could definitely do that and get the answers to the board.
How would we share those questions and answers with the community?
You could certainly ask them and then still invite her to be here and then publicly have the questions. I think what James is saying is it would just give her time to prepare the specific information for you.
Ms. McAloose, you have your hand up first.
Yeah, Mr. Marche, it might benefit some members of the board if you go to the state ed website. There's a handbook that has all the information on ECAP. Perhaps if we can get a copy to each board member, this will answer a lot of questions as to why ECAP is set up, how it's supposed to be used, and who's supposed to sign off. It's really a student account. The money's supposed to be used and expended each year. It's supposed to be used for students to learn how to do the accounting process, how to balance, an account. But there are some cases, such as, a fifth grade trip or prom, that money is carried over from year to year, otherwise the kids couldn't afford it. But I think it would benefit all the board members to look at that and to read it, understand ECAP a lot better.
I'll respectfully ask you just to email our clerk to get that material for everyone, and perhaps it can come home in next week's update. Thank you. Any further discussion on 9.3 D1? Mr. Scrito?
I understand what Mrs. McAloose is saying, but we're talking about the end of June, we have over $203,000 carryover. The yearbooks, you have the middle school and the high school still over $12,000. How they have yearbook money still? Don't
They probably didn't pay the bill yet.
Rob, Mr. Scrito, I think it's clear you have, I think we all do, a lot of questions concerning ECAF. I would like to do what we said concerning, let's email the questions to the treasurer or the advisor and have them appear at a subsequent meeting to answer some of those questions. Okay? Any further questions concerning 9.3D1? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We'll ask the administration to make a note concerning that with the ECAP to set that up. Let us know who we should email the questions to and schedule the appearance at a future meeting.
We will, and what I would like to ask is that...
Oh, I'm sorry. The question should go to the superintendent. She'll forward them.
That's what I was going to suggest, that I will be the central registry for all your questions, gather them, and make sure that Mrs. Tisman has them, and we can respond.
Very good. 9.3D4, warrants. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you. Discussion? Mr. Scarito?
I see a lot of people's names with telecommunications. Are we paying people's cell phones every month?
Yeah, I believe by contract, there are certain people who do have cell phones paid for.
The amounts are different. There's no way we can get a contract. I mean, I'm on the family plan with my own family. I mean, it's crazy that some are $160 a month, some are $220.
The amount's the same. People turn in their bills differently. Some people turn their bills in, it's $40 per month. So some people turn their bills in every month. Some people turn their bills in every quarter. People like me turn them in once a year. So that's why you're seeing different amounts. But the standard amount, as per the board policy, there's individuals listed as well as in the HAP contract, it's $40 per month.
That makes sense.
Any further discussion concerning 9.3D4, Mr. Scarito?
The core BTS, there's a software thing on there of $1,243.56. That's not included in their contract?
I would have to go back and actually look at that purchase order to see exactly what piece of software that was.
Well, that depends, because if it's software that's been purchased for the entire district
I have
to use, it could have been purchased for that.
So the answer is right now we do not know what that is. Could you let us know?
Absolutely correct.
9.3D4, any further discussion? Ms. Mass?
Just for edification purposes, Angela's house is a line on there that we paid out. Can you please explain how Angela's house works for?
Which page are you on?
I'm sorry, I will find it for you. I'm more interested in how it works. I know that, do we collect the money?
You're talking about the account that's listed as Angela's house?
Correct.
Yeah, there's a warrant that we made out. Angela's house is a residential facility located within the confines of the district. And we have students who reside there that we provide educational services to. Those students, we receive 100% reimbursement from New York State. We do provide these students with specialized placements, with nursing services during the day, specialized transportation. Those students do live from all across Long Island. However, we do receive 100% reimbursement for our costs for those students.
Just so that you know, Mrs. Stuccio, it's on page 11 of 17 under Fund A, that you will see the 3 tuition payments for Angela's house. So when we budget every year, when we do a budget, is Angela's house included in the bottom line in the tax levy that we asked the...
If you look at the revenue budget for any particular year, you'll see the top section, state aid, the last line is called, it used to be called OMRDD, now it's called OPWDD, but that is Angela's house, and that's our revenue budget for the reimbursement from the state. So generally, we expect about $500,000 back from the state of New York for these students, and you'll see on the expense side, $500,000 budgeted to pay for the services and placements.
Please.
And if I can, my questions are all about the scholarship payments that we have on pages 305 TNA account?
The trust, TNA means trust and agency account, and that's really a flow-through account. When we take funds for FICA payments, they flow through trust and agency. When we take deductions for health insurance, it flows through trust and agency. It's just a holding account. It's not really district money. So what you see is we'll cut the check to a particular student, but the money will come from, let's say, Suffolk Transportation. So you take that Suffolk Transportation $1,000 check, you deposit it into the trust and agency account, and then we'll cut the checks to the individual students from there. So those are not taxpayer funds.
Any further discussion? Mr. Scarito.
There is 2 items on.
Could you talk into your microphone? Sure.
There are 2 items on here that I didn't understand it. Burlington Coat Factory for $150. I don't know why the school would be buying.
Which page are you on?
I apologize. This would be
Fund F, page
101.
Fund F, that's a federal fund. Those are our Title I monies. We're required to set aside some Title I monies to provide homeless services, and that was a gift card for homeless child so that clothing may be purchased. These are federal funds, and we are required to set that money aside and do things such as this. These are not taxpayer funds.
It's not. Yeah. Okay. And then the Twin County swimming pool for $258.
What page are you on?
13 to 14 maybe?
It's a general fund, Twin County swimming pool. This was, and I had to check the purchase order, this is most likely repaired to the swimming pool, some kind of maintenance and repair. I believe it's a pool service company, and looking at the account code, it's a buildings and grounds code. So this is either some kind of repair, or actually it's a supply code. It probably was for chlorine, or some kind of chemicals needed for.
That's what I was going to ask, because I know we tout that we have this work when we keep supplies here. Aren't we buying supplies in bulk?
Well, the swimming pool, there are fire regulations that we can't keep things like chlorine here in this building, or even in the high school. There are specialized storage requirements. So for a special area like the pool, we would really not be able to buy in bulk other than what we can safely store in the pool area.
Any further discussion concerning 9, Ms. Mass?
I think it would be a really great idea to get someone to give a tutorial maybe on what warrants are, what the different codes are. I think it would be helpful to the new board members in the future.
I think it could be helpful to all of us, new and old. I think that's one of the things that we are going to talk about as far as the retreat goes. Any further comments concerning 9.3 D4? Any further discussion? Mr. Kiley.
Custom computer specialists, page 3 of 17. Do they do anything different than core BPS would be doing?
The custom computer is for our Infinite Campus student management system. So when we are trying to connect through LDAP through the back, custom computer provides that service so that we can have direct access where 2 pieces of software can intermingle with data.
And
Core BPS can't do that. They wouldn't.
well, custom computer, I believe, Eschbach is the authorized servicer and seller of Infinite Campus.
Campus, correct.
Any further discussion concerning 9.3 D4? Seeing none, I will take a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Turning back to 9.1E, do I have a motion? Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, Ms. Mass, thank you. Discussion? Ms. Mass?
You and I had spoken, and the fact that if nobody else wanted to do it, I would still be able to do the signature. I will have time to do that.
Great. And I appreciate that. I'm sure the board does as well. Any further discussion concerning 9.1E? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? 1 abstention. 601. Yes. Finally, 9.3B5, do I have a motion? 9.3B5. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. I'll second it myself. Discussion? Ms. Mass, you severed it. It was Discovery Education.
Oh, Discovery Education. Thank you very much for
You're welcome.
the reminder. Did we not do this last year already?
Not what we're doing this year. Last year, Discovery Education did come in and work with the staff on Superintendent's Conference Day, the topic being engaging instruction and doing things through Discovery that increase the engagement of lessons that go on in our classrooms. Also, the idea that they have many resources now that, in essence, can take the place of certain textbooks and things that we're using, social studies, science, that kind of thing. Last year, when Discovery came in, they did an overview. We did not have the access to technology for all teachers to be hands-on with it. So this year, we've asked them to come in just for a piece of Superintendent's Conference Day. Every teacher will have 3 different workshops, and Discovery will do the one interactive workshop, engaging teachers, and the other 2 workshops will be on OASIS and
OASIS, Discovery Ed, and I got a third school out of that.
and grade.
No, not a grade. I'm thinking for a second.
And so,
Oh, website design.
to enhance
Yep,
all
website
the
design.
individual websites.
Yes.
Correct. And so that's what we're asking them to do, to come in and literally run one workshop for each of our teachers.
So we were
It's
fortunate.
4 individuals.
Yeah, we were fortunate enough this year, we have the infrastructure now at the high school that we can have every teacher in the district on a piece of hardware utilizing web resources. So this particular superintendent's conference day will focus around that. OASIS is our system that we're going to be using fully electronically next year. There'll be no printed reports. All observation and supervision and end of years will be electronic. Next year, website design, teachers will actually have the opportunity to be trained specifically in our new website design and have opportunity to work in a station with supervised instruction. And then we have the Day of Discovery, where we have been able to group teachers by department or grade level, where this will be specific engagement and tools that they have that directly align to Common Core that is embedded into our end grade system. So they'll get a hands-on approach to beginning to develop lesson plans with those attached resources.
And one additional thing that I think it's very important to know. If you remember, during our budget time, we originally proposed purchasing of a commercial science program that was textual, but also based in technology, and how expensive that was. Remember, we were originally going to talk about transportation change for the savings for that. One of the things we're particularly interested in is that Discovery has an elementary science program that is far less expensive and based in technology, and we really do want all of our K-5 teachers, or K-6, I'm not sure, K-5 or K-6 teachers to see that, because it may be, if the next generation science standards do come in, we're going to have to purchase something. So this is basically a way to provide professional development for all of the teachers on Superintendent's Conference Day.
Ms. Mass?
It was my understanding last year, but I don't know if it was last year or the year before, that this was going to be a one-shot deal to have them come in.
I don't remember ever saying a one-shot deal.
Okay.
I don't. Because I think they have tremendous resources for us and for the teachers. And we don't have the opportunity to really share them with the teachers without pulling them out of classrooms and paying extra compensation for, substitutes, that kind of a thing. So we're trying to seize the opportunity again of a day when the teachers are with us all day.
Thank you.
Any further discussion concerning 9.3B5? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-2. Ms. Mass and Mr. Kiley voting no. That concludes the consent agenda portion.
And that being said, I would like to introduce to the community 3 new staff members who have just been appointed in our consent agenda. First, I'd like to introduce Stacy Lewis, a special education teacher. Congratulations. Stacy was with us last year as a leave replacement and is now coming on board at the middle school to replace a retiree, Sandy Boynton. We have Catherine Valeco, who is a reading teacher. And she will be replacing Diane Chandler, who has retired at Bretton Woods. And then we have Laura Stagelmeyer, who is our new Director of Fine and Performing Arts.
Welcome and congratulations. Moving to number 10 on the agenda, the Board of Education Committee chairs. Last meeting we had volunteers for both the audit and policy committees. However, as pointed out by Ms. Macaluso, we failed to I failed to appoint a temporary chair for the purpose of holding an election for the permanent chair. So at this point, concerning the policy committee, I'll ask Ms. Macaluso to serve as the temporary chair. You refuse? Okay. Mr. Scrito, you're on that committee as well?
I am.
I ask you to serve as the temporary chair of the policy committee for the purposes of calling its first meeting and holding an election of the members of the committee to elect a foreperson or chairperson for this year and report back to the board as a whole by our next meeting.
Gladly do so.
Thank you. Concerning the audit committee. Yes. Those that are on the audit committee, would you kindly raise your hands? Let's see. Okay. Mr. Kiley, I ask that you serve as the temporary chairperson for the audit committee for the purposes of calling its first meeting and electing a chair or full person for this year and report back to the board by its next meeting on August 26, 2014. Okay? Okay, very good. Concerning 10B, board representation on district committees. We have 5 committees that we need volunteers. They are the steering committee, the AIDS HIV committee, the code of conduct committee, distinguished alumni committee, and safety and facilities. We'll start at the top of the steering committee. Is it one or two?
James, we have the safety committee, which you run, but we also have the facilities committee that has been ongoing. So it's 2 separate committees.
They're 2 separate.
Very good, I had it as one.
Right, and the only other thing is, I know that Mrs. Macaluso has served on the Distinguished Alumni Committee in the past, and that is really a committee that comes from our high school principal. Ann told me that they were looking at possible changes. That has not come to me yet, though, at all. So my suggestion is we appoint someone. If there's going to be a change in the structure, then we can address that later.
That will be it.
Okay, we'll get to that one. So for all of these 6 committees, it's one person from the board? Or do any of them take more? 2.
District steering, 1 person.
Yep.
HIV/AIDS, 1 person.
Yes.
Code of conduct, 1 person. Correct,
Yes.
Michelle? Yes. And then distinguished alumni, 1.
Yes.
Safety committee, 1. And facilities, we had 3.
Okay. Starting at the top, do I have any volunteers to sit on the district steering committee? I will volunteer to sit on that committee. Concerning the district AIDS committee, do I have any volunteers? Yes. My understanding is required by law. Do I have any volunteers for the AIDS HIV committee? I do not get a volunteer. No? Dr. Carafa, how fitting. Thank you. Code of Conduct Committee, any volunteers? Mr. Scarito, thank you. Distinguished Alumni Committee would be Ms. Macaluso, thank you. The Safety Committee, any volunteers? If I don't have any, I will appoint. Mr. Fortmeyer, thank you. And finally, the Facilities Committee, I need 3 volunteers. Ms. Macaluso, Mr. Kiley, and Mr. Scarito. Thank you. I just want to, item 10 on the agenda is going to be a new item moving forward in which the board committees will report on their progress concerning their work since the last meeting. I just want to, if I may, I'll start with Mr. Kiley. Just tell me the committees that you're on, please.
Audit, facilities, and the advocacy.
Thank you. Mr. Scarito?
The audit, policy, code of conduct, and facilities.
Mr. Portmeyer?
Safety, and I don't know if you want to include it here, but I also volunteered to be the representative on the rest of the town.
Yes. You were an alternate on the advocacy committee, to the extent that I am on all committees, unfortunately, and I am also, I volunteered for the steering committee. Mr. Craft?
The Advocacy Committee and HIV/AIDS.
Ms. Macaluso?
Audit, policy, alumni, facilities, fishing.
And Ms. Mance?
None this year.
Mr. Scarito, you're on 4 committees. Mr. Kraft is only on 2. Are there any of those committees that you'd like to cede to him just so we have a little bit more of a balance? What would that be?
Trade off.
We have audit, policy, code of conduct, and facilities.
I will gladly give him audit.
Audit is, basic audit is a
3-year term.
charter, right?
Yeah, so pick another one. Policy, code of
Which
conduct,
one
from
am I
facilities.
allowed to change it? Is all of them that way?
Policy, code of conduct,
Code of conduct doesn't let you, okay. Let's go with policy. It's not what you want.
Well, considering I just made you the temporary chairperson of that one, that's a problem. Why don't we give him facilities? Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Isn't it odd that one member doesn't participate in any?
That's not good.
All right.
I have a problem.
Moving on.
I
You can
answer-
certainly
I
respond.
certainly can answer that. I've been, for 19 years as a PTA member, I've done every single one of these committees and then some. Also, I have some health concerns this year, Rob, that I really didn't want to get into, but now I did. Thank you.
I'd like to end the debate there, but Ms. Macaluso, you'd like to say something?
I don't think it's right that anybody attacks somebody else. Mrs. Mass has served this community incredibly well over many, many, many years, has chaired and has spent more hours than we were working on some of these committees and has dedicated herself to this community. And to attack her by pointing out that she hasn't done something this year. I think as was said over the last couple of years, it's important that other people step up and are responsible. So I think that's very important.
Okay, we're going to get back to the order of the day, which is our agenda. Moving to number 11, correspondence. We have a list of correspondence that was received. We received an email from Constance Sandbickler regarding documentation on class size, an email from Mr. Abruzzo regarding employment agreements, an email from Ms. Batista regarding Islip Town Board meeting adjournment for Sweetwater Estates until August 21st, 2014, and an email from Jackie Gardner regarding class size. Discussion matters. Board of Education meeting format. This is something that we have we discussed with the consultant that came in, and something that I'd like to personally see move forward. And that is, instead of meeting twice a month rather, in full meetings to conduct a full agenda, that we break up the meetings one being a business meeting and one being a community meeting. So we'll still have 2 meetings each month with a slightly adjusted agenda. The business meeting will be exactly what it sounds like, all the business on the agenda, less recognition and awards, presentations, and general questions from the community. Those items will be moved to the community portion of our meeting schedule, where we will have all presentations, all awards, and all questions from the community concerning anything whatsoever. To be clear, we will always have questions from the community concerning the agenda, whether we're in a business or community meeting. It's my firm belief that breaking these up this way will, and also making the community meetings begin earlier to make them more accessible to the public. It's my belief that separating the meetings in this way will, one, lead to greater productivity, and more importantly, greater access to the community, starting earlier and focusing the community meetings on things that are important to the community, rather than hearing us drone on about business matters, although they're certainly welcome to keep attending those meetings as well. Do I have any feedback from any of the board members or administration concerning the idea, Ms. Mass?
I would ask that, to be extremely clear, I think that we really need to look at our policy that we have right now, which is on the Board of Ed meeting procedures, is 2350.
Yeah.
So that when we have the community meetings, I'm concerned that, in other words, we'll have questions from the community, which are fabulous and wonderful. However, I do not want to put anybody on the spot where they have to answer it that night. I'm concerned about also length of time. In other words, how are we going to change that? In order to be very clear, as opposed to just discussing it, I would like to see how exactly we're going to run it by a policy.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more. That was going to be the first charge to the policy committee, was to set forth amended and/or new policies concerning this new meeting format. Concerning your concern regarding anyone having to answer things on the spot, that was something I thought about and we thought about as well. I think there could be an opportunity for the public to submit issues to be put on the community agenda via email a number of days prior to the community meeting, or if it's a new issue and the board or administration is unable to come to an answer or give the information at that point, to schedule that for the next community session to give the answer to whatever question was out there. But I do agree that it's got to start in the policy committee, and I would ask the members of that committee to tackle this issue first.
Correct, and they need to look at the fact that when you say that they need to, the community members would have the opportunity to put something on, there's laws that govern that as well as policies.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is not just 2250, excuse me, not 2350, that the policy committee should look at 2310, 2320, 2342, and 2350.
And I agree, and I do believe the committee should also run it by our attorney to make sure that we're complying with any laws concerning sunshine law or open meetings law. Yeah. Any other feedback, Mr. Scarito?
I did email that I cannot make the time that you're asking.
You can't make the executive session time on the community. I understand that. I know Mr. Fortmeyer had a concern as well. Being that we're starting those meetings early, to the extent that there will be an executive session, I see no problem with putting it after the meeting. Okay, but the idea is to try to kill all the issues with the business meeting and not necessarily have an executive agenda on those days that we have a community meeting, but to the extent that we're going to, we'll put it at the end.
You asked for administrative feedback. I know that the administrative team and I discussed trying this as a new format. The benefit to us, among many, is the idea that when we have reports that the board would like to have, in addition to questions from the community, it's my understanding that the community meeting would have the reports as well. I know that sometimes we have 2 and 3 reports on an agenda right now. They go on and on and on, and then we lose kind of the interest of the community who's here to ask questions, and it's 10:30, 11 o'clock before they can do so. So my only strong recommendation would be if we go to this format, I agree with, I think, what Eileen is saying to us, which is we have to have a very specific format when the meeting begins, how much community time we have, and then we would have to work very hard. You tell us how much time do we have for the presentations, and we would have to stick to that format. I think that would be vital, but for our input, we'd very much be in favor of this new format.
Very good. So I will ask that whoever is elected permanent chair or your chair of the policy committee to take this issue up first. Any further comment or feedback concerning this proposed idea from the board?
May I just make one other comment?
Yes.
Okay, we have a proposed schedule, which I know was sent to everybody. I don't know if they have a chance, but given the fact that it has to go to policy committee, would we then make August 26th a regular business meeting again?
Yes.
So if there's any hope that we could have the new format and the policies in time to have the first community meeting October 21st, it's vitally important for me to know if we're on that track, because we have a calendar that's going out that has board meeting times in it with board meeting dates, and we would have to get out to the public in multiple ways this change to make sure they're aware of it.
Just so the board members are aware, the proposed dates are the same dates that we already have meetings for. It's just a rearrangement of what those meetings will be. But for November 4th, I believe, is the only new meeting date, and that's a community meeting. But other than that, there are already existing meeting dates. Any other comments or questions from the board concerning this discussion matter? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. Do any board members have any new business to discuss? Mr. Scarito?
Does the middle school and the high school have some type of support system for children contemplating suicide and people on the drugs? Because unfortunately it's come up again a lot this summer, and I'm just wondering if we have a reach-out program for them. Do we have something like that? Or anything?
We certainly have our school psychologists and our school social workers who
Right.
do an awful lot of work in that area, and there are certain community kinds of resources that I know we avail ourselves of with students. I'm advised they're listed in the calendar as well.
So we don't have so that's more personal, so you actually have to get in there and say that, we don't have groups or anything, or discuss this in the schools, the middle schools and the high schools. Unfortunately, it just seems to be everywhere now, and we all know it's there, and I'm just concerned.
Well, it's part of our health education program,
Okay.
certainly. So in that context, it's discussed with all of our students. Do you want to say something?
Yeah,
Mike?
it's a very large part of our curriculum, in our Health Smart curriculum, starting all the way down in the elementary schools.
Right.
But it is a big purpose of our guidance counselors in the elementary schools to raise awareness for younger children. Our social workers, that is a big part of their job, is working with groups of kids. Kids rely on them as adult resources. There are also connections between the kids and the parents and community resources. Social workers provide a tremendous amount of these community resources that we have available to us to help families with kids who may have drug or suicidal issues.
My concern is we wait until they're past that point. I'm saying like we have a prevention thing. When I went to school many moons ago, we actually had a class, Stand Up to Drugs, and you actually learned about that stuff. It just seems that we wait until they're addicted to them, or...
No.
Actually,
No?
in the curriculum of the Health Smart curriculum,
Right.
it's interesting because it starts very early, the drug awareness and alcohol awareness, all the way down, beginning in 2nd to 3rd grade when I reviewed the curriculum many years ago. And actually, when reviewing the curriculum, we had to look at when we felt as a district it was appropriate to begin these types of conversations and utilize that language with kids. So there is an awareness very young. Schools, when we do our character education and we have the same, similar to what you're aware of, like no drug week type of thing, those things still go on in our elementary schools. So there is an awareness through our curriculum and through the types of things we do district-wide.
But it's not just the elementary. In our middle school, we have Nancy Ward, who has been
I see
our
the middle school. Does she
liaison.
go to the high school as well? Or?
She does go to the high school. She does, but a lot of her work is done at the middle school level, following on what's happening with Health Smart.
And then Mrs. Chris, when you go to certain schools, when I drive around doing my job, certain areas say drug-free zones. Is there a reason Hauppauge doesn't have those signs?
You know, I would have to check that out.
This drug-free zone over by the park.
No, I'm talking about the schools.
Can we look into that? And if it's something that we have to organize with the county or the state, it's not a bad idea to get as many signs as we can. Okay. Any further new business? Any trustees, Ms. Macaluso?
I want to apologize to the superintendent for not letting her know I was going to bring this up. It was kind of a last minute thing. Toward the end of last year, we were discussing programs. It's kind of a thought. For this year, one of my concerns was forcing students to, in order to take an AP class, they had to pay for and take the AP exam. And the concern was that many students will take AP courses their senior year because the colleges they are applying to wanted to see that they're maintaining rigor their senior year, so they sign up for courses and have really no intention of doing well on an AP exam in May of their senior year. I have a problem not only with that piece, but of forcing kids to pay to take a class that they're entitled to take. Can we force students to pay for an AP exam to take an AP class?
I would have to consult, but I believe that they're not forced to take the class at the very beginning of that scenario that you painted.
It's a legal question, yes?
If the
Mr. Richard, if you could use your microphone, please.
If the AP test is a required part of the course, you can't require it.
So students can take any AP class and do not have to sit or pay for the AP exam.
Yes, correct. I mean, basically it's a free public education. You can, if it's a course for this.
We do, currently.
Mr. Scrito?
If we go tit for tat, then, I mean, we're not also required to charge people for when they go on field trips. If you're an elementary student, we're not supposed to be charging for that either. We ask for it, but theoretically, a parent does not have to pay for that field trip.
This is a whole course.
I understand. Then you're breaking it down. I hear you. I do. I don't have a problem with the district paying for this, but they have to start covering other things that other parents are paying for.
And I think that one of the things, a couple of points, and we have been down this road before because I agree with Rob, there are so many gray areas, and we've often discussed that if the district had to pay for all of the opportunities we provide to students, then there would be some that would fall by the wayside in terms of their affordability for us. And our public wants these nice opportunities to continue. The thing about the AP, and in essence IB too, as well then, is that the question becomes, do we want to be a school that becomes known for running AP courses just so kids can get a leg up at applying to colleges, or do we really value the fact that they take the course and the assessment that goes with it? And that's the debate that goes on within the school. And I know from the high school's perspective, which would be interesting to see what Mrs. O'Connor says about this and Mrs. Carmen, there has been a strong sense that we should require it of the kids if they're going to take that level of coursework. There's a catch-22 to that, by the way, because there are many districts that don't require it, and you may find that their AP scores and IB scores are higher than ours, because the kids who aren't going to do well don't take the exam. So that publicly, they look like they've got higher scores than we do, but our standard is higher. And so it's a big debate for us instructionally. I understand what you're saying in terms of it does line up with field trips and high school opportunities that we've talked about. And if it's part of the curriculum, we should be paying for it. And yet there are times, such as DECA and things like that, that it doesn't happen.
Field trips supplement the curriculum. Kids cannot enroll in an AP class unless they pay to take the AP exam. And I have a problem with that.
Any further new business from any trustees? Mr. Carafa?
Hope this is the appropriate time to bring this up. I just wanted to circle back to something mentioned earlier in the meeting where we talked about the consolidation of services in order to get the tax break to the community. And one thing came up was the pool. Do we have other examples of other things we're working on to reach that approximate $800,000? And if we are, what can the taxpayers anticipate as the approximate rebate? Do we have an idea? Is it something significant or not? Mr. Stucci?
Well, it's a 2-year plan. So for year 1, which we're entering into now, the only requirement that the district has for the eligible property owners to receive the rebate check is to comply with the tax levy cap. The superintendent certified to the Office of the State Comptroller last month that we did comply, so checks will be sent out probably sometime in mid-October to all eligible homeowners, which pretty much is any homeowner that's eligible for STAR. The value of that check will be the value of the increase of the tax levy, which at budget time was for the average homeowner probably about $115, $130. So that would be the value of the checks. That could change depending on what the actual tax rates become, like a little higher in one town, a little lower in the other town. But the net effect should be a 0% tax increase for eligible homeowners. That's this year. Then we go to year 2. By June of this year, and the information is very limited at this time, but from what we understand, by May or June of this year, this school district would have to send a plan to the Office of the Budget, the Governor's Office of the Budget, of a plan how to save 1% of the tax levy for the next 3 years. So the superintendent mentions probably about $812,000 or so dollars. We'd have to save that amount of 1% of the tax levy in 2015-16, 2016-17, and 2017-18. The way we understand it, it's 800,000 and 800,000 and 800,000. The information about how we can do so, as I said, it's really not been discussed.
In addition to the fact that the comptroller just came out with this information, and I know what will happen when September comes around, when Mr. Stuccio meets with business officials, they will start to generate ideas. Superintendents will start to generate ideas. So the specific answer to your question is, no, we haven't really generated a lot of ideas yet. I do know that we may be reporting back to you in our October report, which we have to give you. We may be talking about transportation again. There may be areas there where we can look to consolidate and save some money. So there may be some big, broad areas, but we really haven't delved into it yet.
But we do have time now, it seems, to come up with a plan for 1 full school year.
We have until May or June to submit the plan, how we would save the money over the 3 years. We have to submit that this year, how we would do it. And then the superintendent and myself have to certify professionally that the plan is feasible.
I have faith that you can do that.
Very good. Any further new business from any board members? Seeing none, I would like to thank, on behalf of the board, Joanne Lawler for stepping in and being our clerk tonight, as Ms. Karimian is on a well-deserved vacation. Moving on, questions and comments from the community? Ms. Rowe, if you could step to the microphone, please.
I won't use the microphone, I was a gym teacher. About your meetings that you're proposing, business meeting, I assume is going to be comparable to what we did tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
Minus presentations, which we didn't have any tonight, awards, which we didn't have any.
All right, now suppose certain things that come up between one business meeting and the other meeting, is there flexibility enough to place it into the community such as
yes.
appointments.
The idea is to, the community meeting will also be for emergency action items, things that can't wait to the next business meeting. So the idea is in the beginning of the community meeting to have a very abbreviated business agenda that will go by very quick, addressing those items that cannot wait.
Okay, with less severing items?
The idea would be there would be no consent agenda that day anyway to sever.
Okay. All right. Now, this came up only because of the new law concerning speed limits by schools?
Yes.
All right. Since I passed the middle school and high school, there's always a sign telling you how fast you're to go. Now, at what times do you go at that speed? I go that even when I leave here, because who knows what's going on. How is that going to be enforced, and how are you going to let people know what the speed limit is during what times between, especially the high school and the middle school?
That, correct me if I'm wrong, that's not controlled by the school district. That would be a Suffolk County Police Department issue. I think you could probably direct your question to them.
Because I have passed some schools where the sign is up saying school is open between this time and this time.
Right.
So you know the speed, the times.
Yes.
Here it's, you know.
I agree with you to the extent that you or anyone else finds it confusing or needs more information. I would contact the local precinct.
Especially if they're planning on putting the cameras.
Cameras, yeah.
So, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Questions or comments from the community? Yes, if you could kindly state your name, I'd appreciate it.
Constance Stambecker. I wanted to know the status.
I can't hear you. If you can.
I wanted to know the status of the email that I sent, the request from May. Okay, the request from May, but I submitted the email that you referenced.
I'll ask Ms. Chris to respond to that.
I responded on behalf of the board when I sent you the information that I had sent you. That in essence, when a board gets a request like that, I do my best to respond to that. And I had sent that information to you.
But I didn't receive as far as the response where the school board policy, where it was increased.
You asked for the documentation, and I believe what I sent you was a copy of the PowerPoint the meeting at which it was discussed. I did not have minutes to verify that, but I gave you as much as I had.
Okay, I didn't receive that attachment then.
Okay, and
it was just your response to all my questions.
Well, then I'll go back and double check, because there was an attachment sent, so I'll double check. But it's the regulation I know you were asking me about.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from the community? Kindly state your name.
Hi, Lisa Lally. Back at the end of school, I sent a request about a tree on Forest Brook property to be taken down that has a hole in it. Has anybody taken a look at that?
I know James just stepped out. Oh, you came back in. I had asked James to go inspect it and also to contact how come the word's going out of my mouth? Arborist, an arborist, thank you. An arborist to come and to take a look at the tree to give us best advice as to what we needed to do. And that is, we just talked about it today.
We just talked about this afternoon. We've had several consultants taking a look at that particular tree we've been talking about and other trees in the Forest Brook area. And they're providing us with a report about what would be the best action for these trees, whether they need pruning, whether they can stay as is, or whether they need to be taken down.
Well, that one has a hole completely through it, so
yes.
I don't think we should wait any longer, because something's going to eventually happen with that one. And also want to discuss the condition of our fields at Forest Brook that we play soccer on, that they are not maintained, and someone's going to wind up getting hurt at this point. They're very well played fields, and nothing. I never see a piece of grass seed laid down at all. I mean, what are we going to do for our children that are there every week?
What is our maintenance schedule, or what do we do for the fields? I know the Pines as well is in rough shape.
Our fields are in rough shape all over the district because we have tremendous use, which is a great thing, but also it really is taxing on our fields. At Forest Brook, we do have an irrigation system, and we do try to maintain the best we can. We'll take another look, and maybe we can put down some hydro seed, which is when you spray the grass, and that generally helps grow. But we're constantly fighting that battle, because the more they're used, the more they become dirt. And that's why, especially at the high school, we've tried to take the fields out of service This is what you get with natural fields.
I think he's putting in a plug for the facilities committee, talking about turf fields potentially.
We are behind the times. Every district has a turf field at this
Well,
point.
it had been brought before the community a number of years ago, and it was voted down in a bond. So just so that you know that, it was a high school. But I think that what James is alluding to is it certainly, I'm not making a political statement, but it would help us because we would have the person power and the time to do more maintenance on the other fields, which would be regular grass and really are very well used in the community. It's difficult for us.
Is there any way to put up a proposal to the capital funds we have that we use, like for the windows? Why can't we put a bond up to transfer the money into another bond that we could do fields with?
Well, I think if you hold tight, we're going to be having a report from the facilities committee, which worked all year this year, touring all of our facilities, and they will be coming forward sometime in the fall, late fall, with a proposal for us to consider, the board to consider, in terms of buildings and grounds.
Okay. My last question is the ESEF money. Is each individual school entitled to see that actual report? I would assume field trips are in that report, that financial report?
ECAP.
ECAP?
We can post the ECAP.
I mean, do we have a lot of money in there that maybe we can reduce field trips because they're very expensive?
Should look at the ECAP report.
Yeah, looking at the ECAP report, what are you requesting beyond the report? You want to see the report?
Are we allowed, is each individual school allowed to see their report? Is there a lot of money in that maybe we can use to reduce funds?
It's freedom of information.
It's kids' money.
The kids' money, yes.
It's not for
No,
us to use.
No, I understand that. But is there a lot of money? Because I know there's plenty of field trips that I personally never went, my kids never went on, and we wound up paying for it. Is there a lot of money in there?
You have advisors at the elementary level, which work with the students who manage the ECAP account for the particular elementary school. So that question is really very well directed toward your building principal and or the advisor of that particular ECAP account. But in general, if you want to see the dollar amounts of ECAP, it's...
As long as somebody would have the report that maybe we can see that we can reduce funds somewhere along the line, or is it just sitting there?
All that should be online, freedom of information.
It's not online?
No, it is.
It is?
It should be online.
If it's not, we'll make sure that the monthly report's posted.
Is it on the Hauppauge district or is it on another?
On the school board? On the board.
So that's there and broken out per school?
It's broken out, it's itemized by club.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from the community? Hello?
Hi.
State your name, please.
Natalie Neiman. I have 2 kids that go to the Pines. Just want to thank Mrs. Chris for spending a little time with me and another parent this morning. We had a long conversation regarding several issues. Class size was one of them. And basically just maybe requesting, I'm new to the meetings here, so I'm getting used to the process. This is my 3rd meeting. But requesting maybe an update or something like that that be provided to the community. You know, if I call the superintendent or if I call our principal, I'm sure I can get an update occasionally, but I was wondering if it could be a public update that would keep us informed of what's going on with your, I guess, discussion regarding class size and looking at alternatives. Is that something that's possible at your, especially if you go to a community-based meeting, to keep the public updated on an issue like this?
Well, I can start by saying that I did. I don't know if you were here when I gave the update on it.
I missed it.
Oh, okay.
I missed it, but I know that you were talking about potentially opening up other classrooms at the specific schools that are closed.
That was my public comment tonight.
Right,
so
right.
It was, in essence, part of the public record that there are certain sections we're looking at in terms of potential breaks.
Yes, I mean more about the potential for changing the class size guidelines.
Yeah, to the extent that your question is not tied up with the labor negotiations, which some of it is, those discussions concerning our ideas concerning class size only take place here in the public session. Okay. And we're not permitted to discuss them outside of the public session, to the extent that they're not related to the labor negotiations.
So those discussions really haven't started?
We're waiting to see the final enrollment numbers.
Okay.
Okay, but it is an issue that is very important to the board.
Right.
And any debate on it, if you're here, you'll hear it.
Okay.
There's no closed-door debate on that.
But for me, and I think I'm speaking for some others, it's not just about this coming school year. It's about the long term, and it's about, you know, maybe going back and looking at reducing the overall maximum numbers, you know, for the three elementary schools and I guess the middle school. And it's really more of the elementary school right now concerned with us.
Absolutely, and no one up here is in favor of larger class sizes. We'd all like one-to-one ratio to the extent that would be possible.
And I've learned, I was very well educated today, that it's a complex issue. There's a lot involved here, and vegetarian is a big part of it. And I've also learned that, you know, we can come to the budget meetings that start in March, and I think that's definitely a good start.
Absolutely.
You know, hopefully
and
keep
especially our new community meetings if we approve it.
I think, I know I'm speaking for a couple of others, I think actually that's a great idea if you can split that up. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from the community? Race to the podium. It's all right.
I just have one quick comment.
If you
My name
could
is
state
Kathy
your name.
Casey, and you said that you were going to move the meeting time up, and
Yes.
we have a very small community, and everybody here is very, very busy. We all have kids. We're dropping off at
Yes.
soccer, lacrosse, everywhere. So most times the house doesn't settle down to about 7:30. So to come here, you like to have your kids, you know, the homework done, everybody kind of settled, and then whoever can come to the meeting. How early are you talking about?
7 o'clock.
So that would be like right with the time when like everybody's like sort of out and about. Like the 8 o'clock time is kind of nice because everybody's kind of back from their activities and settled for the evening.
Look, none of this is set in stone. To the extent that people come forward and say 7 o'clock is no good when we discuss this and propose it, we'd be open to moving it. It's all about, you know, making it more accessible to the community, not stymieing that. So if you're telling me that 7 o'clock doesn't accomplish that, that's something we'll consider when we make the final determination about what time the meeting should start.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome. Ms. Weinars, hello.
Hi. Those were pretty much my exact comments. But one thing I did want to mention is that I think today's group is a pretty accurate representation of what a typical board meeting is like. And if you look at the room, it's mostly women who are cooking and feeding their families and getting their kids to bed. And I just wanted to stress that point because now the board is majority male. So you might not take that into consideration because it's not part of your typical schedule. The other thing that I just wanted to clarify, because I was a little unsure with how you presented it, the community meetings would be once a month, and the business meetings would be once a month as well, so you would have 2 monthly meetings, one a week.
Correct. The meeting schedule wouldn't change. It'd still be 2 meetings a month for the most part, sometimes more, sometimes one.
There are some months where we only have one meeting.
Right.
And that's based on our history, like December.
Right, around the
People
holidays.
just don't come out.
My question is, what if there's a parent who has a big issue that they can't wait a month to bring to the board, you know, if it's something that needs to be addressed immediately, how does that work? You know, I know you had said that they could email it in advance and get it on the agenda, but if it's something that can't wait, is there going to be an opportunity for them to...
Well, an issue like that, a parental issue, would be appropriate for either agenda.
Okay.
The only things that would be precluded from the business agenda would be awards and presentations and recognitions. That's it. An issue from a parent, they'd still have the opportunity to bring it forward to.
Okay, so there would still be the opportunity to have comments and questions from the community, general comments and questions at the end of the business meeting, even if it doesn't pertain to that agenda?
No.
So when would they ask it then?
But I think there are a couple of things. I think I would hope there wouldn't be anything that urgent that could not either be brought to myself first before the board in the hopes of trying to help the parent resolve an issue. That's the first thing. And the second thing is the board does receive, as you hear, emails. If it was something that a parent just felt so compelled and pressured almost to send that to the board, that would be something the board would receive in email.
Okay.
And so they would know.
It's a good point, though, and I will ask the policy committee to consider that, making the availability for a parent or someone to come forward with an emergent issue, even if it's not on the agenda. We should set a policy concerning that.
Okay, if there were other members in the community who would not like to see the start time moved up, who should they send an email to?
Email to the board.
Just in general?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Rowe, ladies
That's my
first, Mrs.
question.
Stephanie.
Has any other school district tried this format?
Yes.
What one?
Yes.
What school district?
I can tell you, my home district of Rockville Central has been doing this for years. I believe POB, Green Village, and essentially the concept is you have a business meeting each month, and then you have what some people, we're calling it a community meeting, but they call it a work session of the board, where the reports and things like that are given, and we give those reports their due time, while not taking away from the business portion.
And I don't want anyone to get caught up on the start time. I mean, this was just an idea that was floated. The idea, like I said, is to make this more accessible, not less. So if it turns out that 8 o'clock is better for everyone, it'll be 8 o'clock. But we won't know that until we get feedback from the community. Mr. Stephanie?
On behalf of all the men in the audience, I just want to note that my wife won't let me come before 8 o'clock either. So.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Any further comments or questions? Please, if you could state your name.
My name is Jack Gardner.
Hi, Jack.
Hi. I spoke at the board meeting earlier this month about class size, and I just had a question. I had brought up the issue of the TA that was put in the kindergarten classroom of 27, and Ms. Rothfeld stated that the TA was brought in December, January, and I emailed you about that, and I never received a response to my email.
When you had asked about that, I thought you were referring to a different student. The TA was brought in February.
Right.
I think it was February 7th, something like that, and the substitute was brought in, and the permanent TA was brought in right after the vacation.
After the vacation, right. But I sent an email and I had no response to my email.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments concerning anything at all? Seeing none, I will ask if there is a motion concerning an adjournment or for an adjournment to adjourn into an executive session to discuss collective bargaining as well as placements and hearings concerning specific students. So, thank you. I'll second it myself. All those discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Our next meeting is August 26, 2014 at 8 o'clock. Thank you.